One way we can think about the purpose of leadership is to say that if you have no followers, there's no leadership. So we could argue that regardless of the industry, regardless of the organization, regardless of the sector, the primary goal of leadership is to create buy-in. It's a phrase I'm sure you've heard in the business world, but buy-in is not a binary concept. It's not a switch that's either on or off. There's a range of, in analog fashion, buy-in that we might expect. So when you try to influence someone else, you might get different kinds of responses. Let's explore what those are. You might get active resistance, where people say, no way in hell am I going to do what you ask me to do, and they will actively fight you. This is the stuff of revolutions, the stuff of union organization, the stuff of splitting off and going and forming a competitor. It's an active, negative kind of energy pool. You might get passive resistance, where people won't fight you openly, but they might go slow, or they drop a wrench in the gears, or they lose the paperwork, or they become passive aggressive. And they cover that up by making mistakes that indicate their resistance to what you're asking them to do. At level 5, you might get apathy, where people just don't care. I frequently see this in many large quasi-governmental organizations, frequently peopled on the one hand, say, with military people and also civilian types. And typically the chief executive officer of these organizations will switch every 3 to 5 years in a normal course of leadership rotation. Well, the people who've stayed behind observe this, and they know that each new leader coming in has to have some kind of a positive fitness report or something to show for their administration. So they'll start making changes. Low-hanging fruit in their eyes. Low-hanging fruit that they want to change to make things better. Well, the people in the organization have seen this come and go several times, and they begin to develop this kind of cynical apathy where they say, been there, done that. We painted the blue stripes yellow last time. Now we're painting the yellow stripes blue this time. This too shall pass. So they hunker down, they keep their heads down, and they acknowledge that if we just keep doing what we've always been doing, then the leadership will change and we'll go through another cycle. You could imagine the Gulf Stream, for example, that runs up the east coast of the United States from the Caribbean area, across the North Atlantic into the British Isles. And consider that the Gulf Stream is this deep underlying organizational, cultural energy set. And the surface waves, where a storm comes by and the waves are going up and down, might be the change in leadership that comes and goes as a new person is assigned. But underneath it, this constant, consistent stream of the Gulf Stream just keeps going regardless of what's happening on the surface. The next level would be a word that I hate, compliance. Compliance is, for me, disgusting because people say, I will do what you want me to do, but then they look for all the loopholes. They obey the letter of the law, but not the spirit of the law. So if it's don't steal, they'll try to figure out how much they can take without getting caught. If it's don't speed, they'll try to figure out how far over the speed limit I can go without getting caught. They comply, but they're not really bought into, if you will, or in agreement with the underlying principle. We see this with regard to a number of government regulations, whether it has to do with clean air, clean water, environmental impact, any number of issues, immigration confirmation, and so forth, where companies will listen to the law and they'll try to obey the letter of the law, but beneath it, they're going on the way they always have. So compliance, and I know that there are chief compliance officers in the world. I know there are corporations who spend a lot of time trying to comply with governmental regulations or customer demands and so forth. But when you do that in a superficial sort of way, it sets up the potential for significant negative and dysfunctional reactions later on down the road. So it's a challenge to figure out, do we really want to just be a superficial compliance with this particular regulation or policy, or do we really want to implement it throughout our organization and in our culture as well? The next level of buy-in is agreement. Here, people say, I will do what you ask me to do, no hesitations, period. I will do it, and I'll do it to the best of my ability. Agreement is a good thing. It's not bad. On the other hand, there are higher levels of buy-in, including engagement, where people will say, not only will I do what you ask me to do, but I actually have a positive value for that. I want to do what you've asked me to do. And here you get more energy, more enthusiasm, more commitment, more determination to make the thing actually happen. And at level 1, you get passion, where people will say, what you asked me to do is the number one thing in my life. And I will sacrifice evenings, weekends, exercise, family time, vacations. I might even blow myself up because I believe so deeply in what you're asking me to do. So many people live passionately about their work or about their professions or about their companies. And we can see this because whether they're on vacation and they're still doing emails or making phone calls or paying attention to what's happening back at the plant, or whether they're changing their lifestyles or revolving all of their family and personal decisions around what's happening in the company, this is an indication of the level of their commitment to the organization. So when you think about this buy-in scale, I invite you to think of it as an energy scale. Somewhere in the middle, we have 0 energy. And above that line, we have positive energy in increasing amounts. And below that line, we have negative energy in increasing amounts. So that passion would be the opposite of active resistance. Passionate support versus rebellious revolution, trying to change things from the way you're trying to make them happen. And so I say, this develops for me a definition of leadership that you might find unusual. My definition of leadership is that it's about managing energy, first in yourself and then in those around you.